Have you seen a lion pride trap a rhino in a pond or taking down the tallest mammal in the wild? But our wild dogs viciously tearing apart their prey with no remorse. And let's not forget the power of the wolf pack trapping and chasing their prey. The hyena, a hunter/scavenger, attacking in their numbers and taking down the prey, although the lion might come for it. Shh. They can even have gang battles in the wild. Today we'll be covering 5 unbelievable pack hunters in the wild. Scratch that, the top 5 gangs in the wild. Number 1. Pack of African wild dogs. The African wild dogs are also known as the African painted dogs. These creatures are known for their aggressive and patient ways, although they live in superb coordination and allow for the young and ill to feed first after a successful hunt. The packs are mostly around 10 members, but can grow to more than 40 members. With a bite force of 370 psi and an average speed of 44 miles per hour, they prefer to tire out their prey before they attack and kill it. The endurance, stamina, and teamwork of these animals are the most impressive traits about them, and this has given them a successful hunting rate of 80%, which is extremely high and surely guarantees them a meal when they hunt as a pack. For large prey like the wildebeest, they charge against the whole group in an attempt to pull out the slow and weak ones, which they easily capture. Number 2. Hyena Clan, a scavenger of the wild. Hyenas live in groups called clans, which can number up to 80 members, ruled by the dominant female. There exist 4 species of hyenas in the wild. Although they are widely known as scavengers, hyenas are known to kill between 60 to 90% of what they eat, giving them a high hunting success rate, much more than a lion. In the 1970s, a zoologist discovered that when a carcass is shared between the almighty lion and the hyenas were responsible for 53% of those kills. The hyena is one of the most successful hunters in all of Africa and extremely intelligent at that. Given the bad rep of scavengers, Hyena Clan has a success hunting rate of up to 74%. This is compared to them hunting alone, which gives them only 15%. They prefer to hunt in packs and take down their prey by biting and dragging them to the ground. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, or you might end up like this lion. Number 3. The Coalition of Cheetahs. Cheetahs, the world's fastest land animal, have the inbuilt speed capacity and a bite force of around 500 psi, which is vital for hunting, and this makes them really good at it. Other than the lion, cheetahs are the only wild cats in the world that decide to live in a group. Male cheetahs are known to live in coalitions between 2 to 6 members, while females become solitary when they have cubs. The unmatched speed of the cheetah, along with its light weight of around 60 kilograms, or retractable claws and camouflage skills, allow the cheat to wait patiently until they pounce on their prey. Cheetahs also tend to have a successful hunting rate of around 50%, which is very impressive, although they may be tired after the hunt and can have their meal taken away from them by other predators. Due to this reason, cheetahs, unlike most of the big cats, hunt in the day just to keep the whole prey to themselves and escape from other predators. Number 4. The Lion Pride. A big family with members of up to 40 individuals, including numerous females and males, between 3 or 4, who are charged with the responsibilities of protecting the pride. The zebras, buffaloes, and even the giraffe become food for these vicious creatures. This is exactly what happens when one tries to hunt alone, but as a group, these animals are truly vicious. Male lions can weigh up to 190 kilograms or 420 pounds in the wild. The females do 90% of the hunting, but the male is the first to take the bite in the meal. With an estimated bite force of around 1000 psi, no animal is escaping the jaws of these creatures. Lions live in the wide savanna, grassland, and plains where it's easy for them to stalk and attack their prey. Apart from stalking their prey, they prefer to attack head-on and battle out with other animals. This is done mostly when the prey is large. This giraffe tries its very best to escape from this pride, despite its numerous attempts to escape the pride. The giraffe is taken down eventually. This goes to show how vicious, powerful, and strategic the lion pride can be. Number 5. The wolf pack. family of wolves or a pack of wolves is a large family and very complex, as it comprises of extended family of parents, children, nephews, and sometimes dispersal wolves, and is very similar to the human family. The structure of the wolf family is a very social one and is headed by both the alpha male and female. Wolves are hungry most of the time and hunt in large numbers. They have been studied to have a successful hunting rate of 14%. Hunting involves surrounding their prey at all angles, giving it no chance of escape. Wolves usually attack their prey on their shoulders, flank, and also by the nose. For a prey killed by the wolf pack, wolf bite marks can be found all over it. The wolf's bite force is about 400 psi and has the potential to reach 1200 psi. An average speed of around 60 km per hour and a large number of participants in hunting makes it difficult for ungulates such as deer and elks to escape. Wolves also tend to increase their pack to respond to the size of the prey they hunt. And that's all for today. Make sure to love your pets and hug someone. Till we meet next time.